Hi, this is Vijay from MuleSoft Product Management team. In this video, we will be looking at how organizations can use Anypoint Partner Manager to exchange business transactions with their trading partners through both traditional EDI and modern APIs. Anypoint Partner Manager is a low-code extension to the enterprise application network, allowing organizations to easily integrate with their trading partner ecosystem that includes their B2B customers, suppliers, logistics providers, and other parties involved in the business relationship. Built on top of the industry-leading iPaaS and API management platform, Anypoint Partner Manager offers a unique and consistent experience to manage B2B integration through both traditional EDI and modern API-based communications. With the recent innovations delivered, Partner Manager allows you to easily configure HTTP endpoints in Partner Manager and manage those endpoints with Anypoint API Manager to apply policies for better governance and security. We will be looking at a very common use case where our fictional consumer goods company, Mythical Suppliers, that receives purchase orders from 5 of their hundreds of customers in different formats and sends purchase order acknowledgements back to the customers in the same format in which they sent the inbound purchase orders. Mythical Suppliers has a matured API-led implementation with a generic inbound purchase order process API accepting a canonical PO JSON message, orchestrating the order capture to create the order in the ERP system, and it also sends a Slack notification in a channel informing business users about orders getting created. And the Slack notification can be made configurable in real implementation to send a notification when an order with out-of-stock items are received, or when an order is canceled, or based on certain conditions as required by the business. We'll now see how Mythical Suppliers leverages Anypoint Partner Manager to integrate with 5 of their hundreds of customers that they sell their products to. Starting off with the first customer, Alps, setting X12 850 purchase orders and getting X12 855 PO acknowledgements through an AS2 connection. They have the second customer called Bluestone, based in Europe, that sends Edifact orders and receiving Edifact order response messages through a WAN connection. We have the third customer, Orange Tree, that sends an EDI X12 850 message through a API Manager managed HTTPS endpoint deployed in Partner Manager and receives a POAX back through a direct HTTP connection. The fourth partner that we're going to configure today is Nile Enterprises, and they are sending a custom purchase order JSON message through a HTTP call, and they get a custom POAC JSON message back when the orders are confirmed in the ERP through a HTTP call. The fifth and the last customer that we have is Yosemite Gears, and they send their own proprietary custom purchase order XML message, and they want Mythical to send a custom POAC XML message in their own format. So Mythical needs to convert their POAC JSON message into Yosemite's XML format and send it back to them. So this demo, what we're going to look at is basically 5 different partners exchanging transactions through 5 different protocols and message formats. And we'll see how Anypoint Partner Manager allows Mythical Suppliers to dynamically validate those messages, transform, and route them to the appropriate destinations. We're now in the Anypoint platform's homepage. As you land into the Anypoint Partner Manager, you are taken into the profile of your own organization, which in this case is Mythical Suppliers, where you get to configure the different types of identifiers to identify your organization. So the identifier could be an X12 or a Edifact or a reference identifier or an AS2 identifier. So we have the identifiers for this organization already configured. And then you get to see the certificate section where you'll be configuring your SSL and the AS2 key store that your organization uses. The next section that you see in the host page is the endpoint section. The endpoint could be receiving inbound transactions coming from your partner, or it could be delivering the translated inbound messages to your backend systems like a process API, or it could be the endpoint through which Partner Manager receives source messages for outbound transactions from the backend systems, or it could be the endpoint through which outbound business transactions and acknowledgements are sent back to the trading partners. So as you create endpoints, you basically are prompted to select the protocol. And if you want to pick up a file from an SFTP endpoint internally or with your trading partners, you can easily configure those connection details and specify the frequency at which you want to pick the messages from the SFTP location, all through a completely configuration-driven experience. if you want to set up a HTTPS endpoint to receive inbound transactions, you actually get to select the option to manage the endpoint with API Manager. So you'll be pre-creating those HTTP APIs in API Manager and bring in the API auto discovery ID so that Partner Manager will use to when deploying the endpoint service in the runtime. So in this environment, we already have all the necessary endpoints created. And what you also will see against each of these configurations is the number of flows using each endpoint. It helps you to identify the dependency that you have on each configurations like your endpoints or message types or certificates. So you know exactly what are the partners and message types that are potentially going to be impacted if you are to make a change into those configurations. So as an example, this HTTP outbound source endpoint is used in 16 message flows that are configured and deployed in the runtime. We will take a quick look at the HTTP receive endpoint that we have that receives inbound JSON, XML, and XML messages from the demo partners that we're going to look at shortly. In this example, I have this endpoint configured and is running in CloudHub. This is the API Auto Discovery ID. And this is an API that I have already created in API Manager when we created this point configuration in Partner Manager. So as you navigate into API Manager, you basically get to see the endpoint with that ID. As we can see here, this is a standard Mule API that is configured in API Manager. I have applied client ID enforcement policy on this API to validate the incoming HTTP message against the client ID and secret. We'll see that in action in a moment. Coming back into the Partner Manager, you can also filter the endpoints based on the usage type. When I filter at the targeted host, so this is the endpoint of the purchase order process API that needs to receive all these inbound messages that are translated into the canonical purchase order JSON message at mythical suppliers. So this is an API that is also running in CloudHub, and I have specified the client ID and secret with which this API is protected. And as you can see here, this endpoint configuration is used currently in 9 message flows. And as I open that, I get to see that the extra 850 is coming from apps, the Edifact orders coming from these customers, and some of the custom purchase order JSON and XMLs coming from different partners. They're all funneling into that same process API to further create the order in the ERP system and also to create the Slack notification. The next section that you see here is the message types. So the message type could be again of different types. So it could be one of these 4 different types. And in our example, we have inbound 850s and Edifact orders. So those are the standard message types. You also can configure your JSON and XML message types for different directions. Just like the endpoint configurations, you can track the usage of each of the message types and which partners and which message flows are using those configurations in an easy way. To summarize what we have just seen, we reviewed the profile configuration of mythical supplier, where we looked at how you can configure EDI and other reference identification in the host organization profile. We looked at configuring the AS2 certificates and key stores. We also looked at the generic endpoints that are used across different partners and flows, and how you can quickly create HTTP endpoints and manage those endpoints with API Manager. And we also looked at the source and target endpoints through which the purchase order acknowledgement and the purchase order JSON canonical messages get exchanged with the backend application network, and the different message types we will be using in this particular demo. Let's now take a look at the trading partners profile. As you navigate into the trading partners page, you basically get to see the pre-configured trading partner and their names. You can create a new trading partner, or you can also create a third-party connection if a group of your partners connect through a third-party connection like a BAN or a third-party logistics providers that manage the B2B integration on behalf of multiple of your trading partners. So in this example, I'm going to take the first customer apps, and they send X12 850 purchase orders and get X12 855 error acknowledgements back. And you can create the profile of trading partners is going to be pretty much similar to the host organization. So you have the identifiers, the certificates, And if you have the partner specific endpoints that you need to create, you can create them under the trading partners profile so that they are accessible for the message flows created for that particular partner. That way you can access control the usage of endpoints and restrict the usage within the scope of the trading partners. And you also have the ability to configure X12 message validation settings, acknowledgement settings. You can turn on or turn off different validation rules. And you can also turn on or turn off duplicate control number checking as well. On the outbound side, you can configure things like your delimiter characters or the character encoding to be applied on the generated outbound messages. You can also reset the control numbers if you're hitting the upper threshold of the number of digits, or if you're transitioning from a different B2B platform into Partner Manager, you can take advantage of some of these features. To summarize, we just saw the trading partners profile aspect of Partner Manager, where we can see and configure partners identifiers, their AS2 certificates, and if there are any partner specific endpoints, you can configure those as well. And you can also configure the different EDI specific message validation rules within the partner's profile. We'll now look at the message flows. We'll start off with the orange tree partner that sends inbound X12 messages through a HTTP call. So I'm going to take the inbound 850 message flow from orange tree. And creating a message flow is very simple and straightforward. And you're basically presented with a wizard where you have to select those building blocks that we have pre-configured, like your endpoints, your message types, your other configurations. So in this particular example, we saw that Orange Tree sends the X12 850 purchase orders through a API call. And this is the endpoint that we created in the host profile with this API ID. And we also saw that this API is active and running in API Manager with client ID enforcement policy enabled. And when messages come from Orange Tree through this endpoint, and the second step in inbound message flow is to select the type of message that you're expecting from this partner. So which in this case is 850. And when you click select, you basically get to see all the receive from partners message types that are configured in the host profile. And if you haven't created already, you can also create the message types directly from this dialog and select the version of your EDI and the message type that you want to configure with this trading partner. And in this particular example, we are receiving an inbound X12 850. We have enabled the 997 functional acknowledgement to be sent back to Orange Tree through a direct HTTP endpoint call. And this is an endpoint that is configured in Orange Tree's profile. And the next step here is the transformation to translate from the X12 850 message format into Mythical Supplier's purchase order canonical JSON message format. And we have ready to use templates and examples published in Anypoint Exchange. If you search for X12 under templates or examples in the Anypoint Exchange, you will get to see different templates that you can take advantage of to jumpstart your development of your EDI mapping from EDI to JSON or XML or vice versa. The experience of mapping an EDI message into JSON or XML or the outbound messages from JSON or XML into EDI is pretty much all through the same experience that most of MuleSoft developers are used to, which is the database-based experience. So this example, I'm just quickly showing an example of a built-out 850 to JSON mapping. So the template that you saw in the Anypoint Exchange basically presents you with the left side of the mapping canvas already built. And if you want to change the message type from 850 to an 855 or a 204, you can easily do that by following the instructions in the template documentation. And all you need to do is to basically import your canonical message schema, like an XSD or a JSON schema, and start building out the map. So in this case, you can also on the left side, you can expand the EDI structure and you can hover the mouse over and you get to see all the different EDI data elements. And you can map those data elements into the right side output structure. And you basically get to map EDI messages into your application message format relatively quickly. Once you have that map built out, you basically bring that map into Anypoint Partner Manager in the map section. And I have that map already brought in to the Partner Manager flow. The next step here is basically to select the target message type, which in this case is an inbound purchase order request coming from an external customer. And obviously this needs to be sent to this inbound purchase order process API, which further orchestrates the creation of the order in the ERP system, and also it calls out to the Slack notification API to send a notification in a Slack channel. And now that we understand how an X12 inbound purchase order message flow would look like, let's get to see an example with an Edifact message. So Bluestone Corporation is the customer that is based in the Europe that sends Edifact D97A orders purchase order message to Mythical Supplier. And if we get into this, we also saw that this particular partner is not directly sending the message to Mythical Suppliers, but they are sending it through a WAN connection, like a third-party WAN or a 3PL connection. The Orange Tree 850 message flow, we saw the receiving endpoint was a HTTP endpoint managed with API Manager. So in this case, we have selected an AS2 endpoint that is generic and is used across different partners of Mythical Suppliers. And here you can select to indicate that the message is directly coming from this partner, or if it is coming through a pre-configured third party or a WAN connection. So in this case, it's coming through a WAN connection. This is an Edifact purchase order message. So when you select the message type, you get to see all the message types that are pre-configured. And the experience of creating an Edifact message flow is pretty consistent with that of the X12 message flow. Similar to how we enable the 9 and 7 functional acknowledgement for X12, you can enable the control acknowledgement to be sent back to the partner for Edifact message. And that is set to go through an AS2 endpoint of the B2B WAN and not directly to the customer themselves. The experience of creating the Edifact mapping is also pretty similar and consistent. You have the templates and examples of Edifact mappings as well. The target basically is same as the previous message flow. So it's the same canonical JSON purchase order message type, and it gets sent to the very same inbound purchase order process API. That's where Partner Manager allows you to take care of all the partner-specific nuances within Partner Manager and send a common canonical message structure to your process API, which is completely partner agnostic. The next message flow that we will see is Yosemite Gears that sends XML purchase order and receives XML purchase order acknowledgements. So I have defined their proprietary purchase order XML structure as a custom receive from partners message type. So in this case, you will see that this message is coming through that HTTP endpoint. It's the same endpoint to which Orange Tree sends their X12 850 purchase orders, but obviously Yosemite Gears will be given a different client credentials to talk to this API. So in this case, it's the source message type is an XML message type. It's not X12 850 or an Edifact orders. So again, when you select the message type, you get to see even the JSON and XML message types that you have defined. There is no EDI involved, so it's pretty much very simple XML to JSON transformation. Obviously, Yosemite's purchase order XML is going to be very different from Mythical's purchase order JSON message, so you need to do a little bit of mapping, which is very standard in DataWeave. So in this case, I'm mapping the XML coming from Yosemite into the canonical PO JSON at Mythical Suppliers. So now once the message is converted, then the target is going to be the same as the inbound 850 or Edifact orders message flow. And it's getting mapped to the same canonical purchase order JSON structure, and it gets sent to the same process API that creates the order and sends Slack notification. We'll quickly look at the JSON purchase order coming from the other customer, Nile Enterprises, sending the purchase order JSON message in the same structure as Mythical Suppliers JSON purchase order structure. You don't really need a complex transformation. You can basically simply pass through that message as it is. But as it goes through the Partner Manager framework, the transaction gets registered and you can view the payload and take operational actions on those messages. The Nile Enterprises PO just simply passes through Partner Manager, or if Nile's purchase order JSON structure is different from Mythical's JSON structure, you basically will have a JSON to JSON mapping here. And the target is same message type, same purchase order process API receiving the translated canonical purchase order JSON message. So now we'll look at just one simple example of an outbound message flow. We'll pick the outbound 855 message flow. So this is when the order is created and confirmed in the ERP. The backend system or the backend process API sends a canonical purchase order ACK JSON message to Partner Manager. So you can configure a common endpoint through which you can receive different types of outbound messages like your POACs or ASNs or invoices or load tender responses or shipment statuses. You can reuse those endpoint configurations for different transaction types. And when these messages come into Partner Manager, we have a content-based routing framework that identifies which partner is actually receiving this transaction. And then based on the partner's profile, so in this case, if it's an outbound POAC going to Alps, it gets mapped into a 4010 855 purchase order acknowledgement message. And if you are expecting a functional acknowledgement to be returned by the partner, you can enable them. You can also set a timer of when you want this transaction to be marked as overdue so that you can take corrective actions to reach out to the partner if they haven't responded with a functional acknowledgement within that stipulated time. And once you have the identifiers all set up, you select how you want to deliver this translated XML 855 message to the partner. Let's also now look at the outbound purchase order custom XML flow for Yosemite. When you look at the source section of this, it's basically the same as the other purchase order acknowledgement outbound flow that we saw for the other customer. It's coming through the same endpoint. So the backend process API always talks to this one single endpoint to send the data regardless of which partner is actually receiving the message, and it's the same message type. And if this is a message POAC going to this partner, which in this case is Yosemite, I'm applying a JSON to XML transmission map that I built in Studio with DataWeave. And the JSON POAC is getting converted into this XML POAC based on Yosemite Gear's XML specification. I'm actually setting that XML message through a direct HTTPS endpoint running on the partner side. So they get to receive the translated XML POAC on their side to update the order status on their systems. In the message flows, we saw that two of their partners are sending XML 850 and getting 855s, and the other partners are sending Edifact, XML, and JSON messages. Let's now see all of that in action. And I'm going to act as these 5 different trading partners and send some purchase order transactions of the different types that we have configured, show how Anypoint Partner Manager helps to process those orders and order acknowledgement messages. So I have pre-configured some postman collection with some sample data. So I'm going to start off with as our first customer, and I'm going to be sending in a XML 850 purchase order transaction with the PO number of 1001 into the AS2 receive endpoint deployed in Partner Manager. And I'm using a AS2 client application that I'm running with Anypoint AS2 connector to simulate this AS2 message. I'm sending the message as if it is coming from Alps. I got a positive MDN from Partner Manager, and I also got a Slack notification stating that the order 1001 has been created in the ERP system. And I can go into my ERP systems database, and I can see that I have received the order 1001 a little while ago from the customer apps. I'm now acting as the second customer Bluestone that sends Edifact orders. So the PO number in this case is a PORD 2001. And I'm going to be sending this as if it is coming from a WAN connection that is configured in Partner Manager. And when I send that, I should be getting in a positive MDN, which I just got. And I also got the Slack notification stating that the order 2001 has been created in the ERP system. I'm going to now act as the third customer, which is Orange Tree, that is sending in XML 850 purchase order with the PO number order 3001. And as we have seen in the configuration, they are actually configured to send the transaction through a direct HTTP endpoint managed with API Manager. So in this case, I'm passing in the client ID and secret that is specific to Orange Tree. So now, and I'm sending this order 3001 into the system. And I just got a notification that the order 3001 has been created in the ERP system. So if I go back and refresh the ERP system, I already have the order that came from Bluestone as well as the order that came from Orange Tree. And you also get to see all the translated JSON messages as the EDI transactions get translated into JSON canonical structure. Now let's go back, and I'm going to act as Nile Enterprises that sends in the custom PO JSON message. Again, it's being sent to the same endpoint to which Orange Tree sent, and obviously Nile will have their own client credentials to interface with the API created managed with API Manager. So when I send this order 4001, and it goes through and it will get accepted by Partner Manager, further gets converted, and the order has been already created in the ERP system, and I got the notification as well, and I should be able to see that order from Nile already created in the ERP system. And let's look at the fifth customer, which is Yosemite Gears, that sends in custom purchase order XML message, which needs to be converted into Mythical's canonical JSON purchase order structure. So I'm now sending this XML message into the same endpoint through which Orange Tree and Nile Enterprises sent their external and JSON messages into. When I send this, I get a 202, and as you would expect, I am getting a Slack notification pretty much instantaneously stating that this order 5001 has been created in the ERP system. If I go back to the ERP system and refresh, I get to see this order 5001 that came from Yosemite has already been created. And now let's go back to Partner Manager and see how it all looks like. Activity is the page where you get to see all the transactions that are flowing back and forth through Partner Manager with your trading partners and your backend systems. And you get to see all these transactions that we just processed. So the custom XML that came in from Yosemite Gears and the custom PO XML that was sent back to the customer. And you can also filter based on the host message type. If you want to look at only the inbound orders, regardless of how they came in, you can filter by the host message type, which in this case is an inbound PO request. So that actually shows all the orders that came from different partners. So you see the XREL 850 from Alps, the Edifact orders from Bluestone, and the XREL 850 from Orange Tree, and the JSON purchase order from Nile, and the XML purchase order from Yosemite Gears. And you can also drill into each of these transactions and view the payload that was sent by the partner, and the acknowledgements that were sent back to the partner, and also the AS2 MDN. In this case, it's an inbound AS2 message. So obviously, Partner Manager sends a MDN message disposition notification indicating the receipt and the processing of the AS2 message in the system. And similarly, if you go back to the activity, and you can also select any of your outbound messages. In this case, it's a X12 855 going back to Orange Tree through a HTTP connection. So you can view the transaction processing activity, including the source JSON payload that was received from the process API for the purchase order acknowledgement to confirm the order back to the partner. You can see how the message was processed through the flow, and you can also see the payload of the final 855 that was sent back to Orange Tree. And similarly, you can apply different filters if you want to specifically filter all the transactions that were exchanged with a particular partner, or if you want to specifically filter by the partner facing message type, like your X12 850 or 855, you can take advantage of all the different filtering capabilities. Just to finish off, just one last use case that I wanted to show is how Partner Manager handles the error scenarios. It's not uncommon for these EDI messages coming from partners to not have certain mandatory elements or certain elements, or violating the length requirements specified in the EDI validation settings and the schema. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually send a message on behalf of Orange. The purchase order number in an X12 message cannot exceed 22 characters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this BGO3 element, which is the PO number, to be more than 22 characters in length. The message will obviously be accepted at the transport level, But when it comes into Partner Manager with the validation rules enabled for the partner, you basically get to see that the message has failed in the X12 validation rules. And you can drill into the message and you get to see that there was an X12 message coming from Orange Tree that failed in the validation. For Orange Tree, we haven't enabled the 997 functional acknowledgements. So there was no 997 that was sent, but still the message failed because the data length in the BG03 purchase order number segment was too long. All right, thanks for watching this demo. And what we learned in this video was how Partner Manager can enable organizations through a low-code and configuration-driven partner onboarding experience to set up integrations with external trading partners through both traditional EDI and API-based integrations. And we also saw how you can use API Manager functionalities in the context of B2B partner integrations. And we also saw that how real-time the order to cash integrations and other business-to-business integration workflows can be set up by leveraging the API-led connectivity in conjunction with Anypoint Partner Manager. Thanks for watching and have a good day.